What are you curious about?
We as individuals, as the human species, we have the faculty, we have the capability of feeling and emotion and experience. So the way we learn to navigate through our life is how we experience life, how we experience ourselves in relationship to other people, to our friends, to our family, to our work, to the institutions. And so we experience our environment and we experience ourselves. And in that process of experiencing, we make mistakes, we learn. And the way of learning is usually by trigger experiences. Experiences that change our lives, that are suddenly coming into our path, and we have to understand them. And we have to deeply feel them. And then there might be a tipping point or a changing point and turning point in our lives. And in that way, we create a value system where we say, this is right for me, this is right for my brothers and sisters, this is right for my work. And that value system leads us to unfold our purpose. Now, we heard Nana say, I wanted to create more meaning in my work. Now, I think we are here to discover our learning path and to discover what our purpose is. So that's one line of my story. The second line of my story is, how do businesses create value? How do they create value in a way that it is meaningful for us? So, businesses can only survive when they service a meaningful purpose. And what do we see in present society? Is there a possibility that our way of value creation, our way of how we create meaning, comes together with how businesses create meaning? That hasn't been in the past. We have been opposites. Now, values are the key to our behavior. If we hold values, they steer our behavior. Now, in our behavior, we see a development of external steering from outside, from hierarchy, from institutions, to internal steering and to inner wisdom. For companies, a lot of companies are busy to define their core values. Why do they do this? Why do they define their core values? Because they want to create a corporate culture, a corporate understanding of how the culture, of how they should behave. So the basic understanding is values create direction and intention of behavior. Now, let me sketch the zeitgeist, the present time frame where we're living in. We're living in a time frame where we share a lot of things. We go to sit at a place like Seats to Meet. We go to a place like Coffee Lovers or a coffee company. We look and seek for company. We look and seek for serendipity. And we work and we meet other people and we share our thoughts and our creativity. And what we see happening is developing collaborations that we didn't thought of and that we didn't even think of. Now, in the present media, what we see happening is that we move from an area, a phase of one to many, from many to many. So we have co-created value, co-created communication. And what we see happening is that the value proposition of businesses and of media partners is that we don't accept the one-to-many broadcasting anymore. We are changing. We have our own dialogues in our own communities. And what we want and what we prefer, we don't want to read the whole newspaper. We want to cherry pick, like Blendle is doing. Like, do you know Blendle? Blendle is a platform where you can read and scroll through all newspapers. And you scroll through newspapers and I like this. And then it says 35 cents to read it. Yeah? And then you pay for it and say, did you like it or didn't you like it? Okay, we reimburse you. So it is reader friendly. It is taking away the friction of old business models. It is encouraging our life, the quality of our lifestyle. This is Blendle. Now, we see happening Airbnb. Airbnb is that you actually can be host. You can rent out your house. You can visit and travel global or any city you go. And you look for a place, not the usual standard hotel, but you look for a local. And you buy in their social capital. The local directs you to the nice cafes and restaurants and cultural elements. And so you feel part of that new culture. So it's sharing your culture with somebody else. Now, Airbnb has more than 11 million nights, guest nights. It is now an 11 million business. It is a disruptor in the hospitality industry. Right? Now, I heard a talk 2 weeks ago of the chairman of Holiday Inn. And I asked him about Airbnb. He didn't know the existence of this growing monster. Quote, yeah? So we have to look what these new value propositions do to us and what they do to traditional business models. Mobility. Mobility is changing. Snapcar, we share our car. Car to go. Do you know car to go? Car to go is into some main European cities. It's actually an experiment, a learning experiment from Mercedes. Mercedes owns Smart, and those are electrical cars. You have a car, you log in, you open the car, and you drive it as long as you need it. You pay a basic fee, and you pay per kilometer, okay? So they are learning, it costs them a lot of money, new business models into the sharing and the collaborative economy. So sharing, where do we go? So what we see is that the traditional institutions, the crisis we're going through, the banks that are geared for survival and do not help medium enterprises, right? So if you go to the bank for a loan, they say you need to do this, 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 this. It doesn't help. So what did they start? Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, you have an idea, you post it on the website, and on the website of Kickstarter, and if you can if you're convincible to the crowd, and you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, in return, you can get interest, or in return you can get a free ride, or whatever. And people invest in those initiatives. That's how the Correspondent, a new newspaper that writes about the real structural changes in society, is being funded. So business models are changing. And what we see everywhere networks, collaborative networks. Now, these networks, like Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, are networks that are still in the power, in the ownership of very intelligent people that enable other people to share their value, to share their meaning, to share their beds, to share their houses, their cars. Or a new startup in the Netherlands, peer buy, right? You don't buy a new tool. No, you look up the platform and say, who has a blower for in the garden? And it's your neighbor, and you rent it for half a day, okay? So we are going into an economy where hierarchical becomes horizontal. Now, this is an example of Struik. Café Struik in Amsterdam doesn't have a cook. It's a brasserie, it's an eating cafe, but it doesn't have a fixed cook. You know who is cooking? The guest. So the guest says, I would like to cook. He goes to the big book and he books his evening, the 25th of May. And the owner of the Café Struik says, what are you going to cook? He says, oh, hamburgers. Okay, fine. So you make a menu of a starter, main course, and dessert between 8 and 15 euros, okay? And you put on Facebook the invitation, the menu, to all your friends. So who does the marketing for the restaurant? The cook. Now, how is the business model arranged? You do your own buying of ingredients. You do your own cooking, right? You may hold all the revenue except 10%. That's for the restaurant, for the kitchen, for the basic resources. And they get the revenue of the drinks. Now, my sons were cooking here, and they didn't make a fortune because they were too expensive ingredients that he had. So they learned. They learned in the process of value creation. Now, we have to study all these new value propositions, all those new value creations, because they are going to change the way we relate economically and culturally with each other. Now, let's look at the common denominator of these disruptive platforms. First of all, value is being co-created. It is not created by the producer, the restaurant, the supplier. No, it's co-created between us. Ownership is not important anymore. It is sharing, and the ownership is the access to the experience, the access to a car, the access to travel, whatever it is. Monetary value becomes social value and social capital. What we also see is technology is democratizing the society. The value is shared and facilitated by these community platforms. And they are very, very disruptive. How do we understand? We need to get at grasp with these big and deep changes in society. We can look at the philosophical. The philosophical is very, very fascinating. The Dutch philosopher Arnold Cornelis said, we feel home in our natural system. The human being is hidden. He only relates to the family and his close friends. So his layer of stability is family. We move to a second layer. Our social institutions, our social system, our regulations. We stop for red light, we pull up for green light, we pay tax, we do all things we should do. So the human being is obedient to the social structure. It's like being in prison. And now, he says, we live in an age of creative self-determination. We are moving and expressing ourselves on the internet everywhere. We are sharing the most dearable things with others. So we are in an age and in a time frame where we are the creative source. So not the top and the big institutions create society. No, it's the micro initiatives. It's the little startups that are really, and that's why everybody is so keen on every startup to get it, because big companies are desperate for the business model. And they have to reinvent themselves. Also, you see sociological, you see a change of value from manufacturing, supply-driven, to marketing-driven, to people-driven. And now, we need to be a transparent and responsible business. Otherwise, you're not sustainable. Now, economically speaking, and also technologically speaking, we live in an age where there's dematerialization. We have eco-efficiency. That means that we need less resources to produce more. So we live in an age where ownership, products move to services and move to access to experiences. And my plea is to create not a Disneyfication of the world, but create meaningful experiences. Experiences that contribute to the quality of our life. Technologically speaking, there's one too fast. Technologically speaking, we are innovating. We are talking about singularity, artificial intelligence, robotization, where actually the intelligence that we incorporating in our life, in our biological body, is not separable anymore from the artificial intelligence, right? Google Glass, we are moving to a digitalized age. And there are some big philosophical questions, okay? Now, if we talk about these, my technological device is a little bit either too slow or too fast. Doesn't matter. What we see happening is that we are taking initiative in the way of creating meaning and creating value. We see a power shift between large institutions, company enterprises, towards little initiatives, and we see that the big institutions are forced to humanize. They are forced to create meaningful propositions. So we are actually in an age where the two values of the individual and the value of the corporates and of the economic interest are coming closer together and starting to meet each other. Now, those companies that have a purpose that is a contribution to the quality and the improvement of our lives are going to be sustainable and are going to be successful. Those companies that stay in their own traditional business model will slowly fade out and they will face slow death. Now, what is the answer for the companies, the enterprises? They should really be focused on their purpose finding. And where we will find each other if we are pursuing our purpose and they are contributing to our purpose. Thank you very much for your attention.